Welcome gone, guys. I'm really excited for this one. Cool. We're going to be talking about Ethereum in the modular era, rollups, restaking, the road ahead. I'm Rachit Agarwal. I'm the head of global expansion at the Wormhole Foundation. Wormhole is an interoperability protocol. We work with some of the biggest institutions and DeFi protocols in the space. We work with the likes of BlackRock, Apollo, Van Eck. On the DeFi side, we work with Uniswap, Sky Protocol, amongst others. Yeah, guys, you want to give a quick introduction and we can get started?
Yep, sure. So yeah, I'm Arpit. I'm the CEO of Glitch Labs. What we do is we build full stack modular infrastructure service. We have been building not just chains, but also launchpads and a lot more applications on it. In terms of technicalities, we are DA flexible. We are agnostic in terms of sequencers, and yeah, pushing the modularity, which is more usable to the end consumer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tom Ngo, CEO of Metis. Metis is one of the first L2 scaling solutions to help Ethereum scale. I would say Metis has evolved into an organization, more of an innovation organization, to really facilitate some of the challenges in the space today, from the BTC liquidity side to ZK and AI most recently. Here to really help build out the industry in many verticals, and great to be here today.
Hey everyone, I'm Aaron. I'm the head of APAC at Course One. So my job at Course One is to really look after kind of business, sales strategy, and go-to-market in Asia. At Course One, we provide staking services. So we secure over 40 plus blockchains today, most of them POS blockchains. We have over around 3 to 4 billion of assets staked through our validators today. We're also one of the infra players on Wormhole, plus a lot of other big networks such as Ethereum, Solana, and Cosmos as well. We work with the likes of big VCs who want to stake their tokens with us directly to earn yields, as well as kind of big partners such as exchanges, wallets, and custodians. And yeah, super happy to be here talking about kind of rollups and restaking today.
Awesome. Here. All right, thanks so much, guys. We've specially curated the questions for this one. I want everyone to go through a journey of understanding the modular thesis, understanding where staking, restaking fits into it, and then we'll end with the current crypto Twitter drama that's unfolding around the modular thesis as well. I think, let's probably start this off with when was it the first time you heard the rollup-centric roadmap? Did you sort of believe that L2s were the way that Ethereum would scale? Tom, I think we can start with you because you were the one that built the L2.
Yeah, I think it's more of not just an L2, but what the industry needs. And at that time, Ethereum was unpredicted gas fees. I think the demand, it wasn't optimized to really manage the mass and scaling. So that's why the solution was to build out the L2 to provide this solution for the industry. In terms of do we need L2s, I think there is a need and still a need. And I think this is a very interesting topic. Ethereum has proven itself to be, the settlement chain. It doesn't have to be fast, but secure, and it has the economic value, and it's proven. We see a lot of new L1s and L2s or different networks, but they don't have the economic value, which is hard for them because there's no capital there. So even though Ethereum is one of the first, and it might be not the most advanced at the moment, it's one of the most decentralized, secure, and when you deal with capital, that's what people want to see. There's some conversation between how L2s are really vampiring L1s or Ethereum itself, but actually it's falling into the same ecosystem. And I don't think, you can't live without the L2s or rollups.
For sure. Arpit, what do you think about this? When did you hear the rollup-centric roadmap first, and what did you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, at the first time when I heard about L2s, I think it was too good to be true. So definitely, it was a huge vision. And at that time, I think the concerns were mainly around tooling, around the liquidity, and how we will make this vision a reality. But I think fast track moving now, seeing it right now, I think with the new EIP standards, it's much more realistic, and we are almost at the stage of being integrating enterprises and huge corporates on L2s. So which is really good. I think L2s are not just a way to build on top of L1s, but it's also a journey of innovation. So you can continuously innovate the technology without compromising the stability of L1, which is really important. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And Aaron, I want to throw this to you, but I want to add a staking twist to it. Same question, what was your thoughts on the rollup-centric roadmap first? I want to add a little end question, how has this evolution of like L2s affected Ethereum staking, like the landscape of staking in general?
Yeah, so I think I heard about kind of rollups and L2s like many years ago when Vitalik actually wrote a paper on kind of rollups being the end game for scaling on Ethereum. I mean, that made perfect sense because, Ethereum is not like other blockchains such as, Solana, which has more of a monolithic approach to scaling. Obviously, Ethereum has kind of lower TPS, so you do need kind of vertical scaling. You need L2s to host all these applications with high TPS and low fees, right? So I think L2s completely make sense to host all these new applications. And in terms of how kind of the proliferation of L2s kind of help or the adoption of staking, I think it's definitely kind of net gain, net positive for staking and restaking. So think about like a world without L2s, right? You only have Ethereum L1. You stake your ETH, maybe you mint an LST like stETH. You can deploy it like on some DeFi protocol like Aave on L1 Ethereum, and that's it, right? But right now, like with 10, 20, 30 L2s, you can actually mint your LST, you can actually bridge it to Arbitrum, Optimism, do an arbitrage there, maybe bridge it again to ZK Sync to do like some crazy DeFi strategy and do some more lending there or do some like DeFi farming there, right? So I think the more protocols we have, definitely, I think it's actually helpful and it actually pushes the adoption of staking and restaking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that takes me back to like the eigenlayer restaking meta. Yeah, man, I was really deep into that one. Let's talk about, Tom, you touched on this a little bit with like the sort of recent shift in meta and how, a lot of the bigger names on crypto Twitter have started to criticize the Rollup-centric roadmap. They've been talking about scaling the L1. I feel like the Ethereum Foundation is also making an effort towards that push. What are your thoughts on like everything that's unfolding, your conversations with other people on the topic? And then, I think the audience would be really interested to know, like, with everything going on, has that changed the thesis at Metis at all?
Yeah, for Metis, we've always wanted to bring solution, and our ethos is really close to why blockchain was created: decentralization, ownership, borderless kind of ownership. And for how we are shifting is we see a gap in the different technological sectors, and we see blockchain as a solution, not just a thought, but actually a tangible solution. I think for us, we see data is the new kind of value asset, but how do you assetize data? Same thing with how blockchain was created. How do you assetize a currency or a digital asset? Blockchain made that happen. So for us, we see AI and data is also a way to assetize, and now it'll be a new way to monetize that data and have ownership of who contributes to that data. So that's a very unique approach for us. In terms of like the restaking and how the landscape has shifted, it shifted quite a bit because every time you have yield, restaking yield, it's basically where's the yield coming from. And as we advance as a blockchain industry, fees has to go down. It has to make sense from a business aspect for an institution or a manufacturer to do things on chain. It's an unaccounted cost. So we're seeing fees go lower. That means the yields are going lower because it doesn't come out of thin air. There's value being transferred somewhere. So the restaking side has, I would say, cooled down quite a bit. Hearing from a lot of the partners, restaking partners and entities, now the overhead is quite high. Now they have to shift the model. But we can't predict what's happening. It's evolving, and we're shifting with the market. But at this time, I think the shift have shifted from really a DeFi focus-centric kind of for the industry to something more usable, user-focused, consumer-focused. All this infrastructure stuff, it means very little, but it means a lot to us in the industry, right? Because this is our ethos.
Yeah, yeah. And are you hinting at the fact that, as an industry, it might not matter if it's an L2 or L1, it just matters on like, is it easy for the user? It's like low cost, low gas, yeah?
Absolutely. You can see that with a huge shift in Solana, and kudos to the team. And, people are saying, hey, it's not fully decentralized, but at the end of the day, they made the user experience really easy. But it's great to see Ethereum really shift their focus, turn things in high gear, and really shift all the L2s and everybody kind of building on top of Ethereum.
Awesome. Aaron, I want to shift it to you. I think a lot of your partners in like the past couple of years with the rise of L2s have predominantly been L2s. With like this current shift in meta, have you seen a lower demand of people building L2s? Or is demand still the same to build an L2?
Honestly speaking, I feel like, like we're not on the building side, like, for L2s and rollups, but from what I see, I do feel that, L2s are still important. because the L1 as of today, you still cannot host, like applications which require really high TPS and low fees, right? So we do feel that, L2 is kind of still the trend. I think the topic currently today, or the hot topic for debate amongst people or developers, is that, great, we built all these L2s and rollups, but how can we actually align the value created in L2s with L1s, right? And that kind of takes a conversation to maybe things like sequencers, which are really complicated, which we probably shouldn't cover today. But I think the topic is not whether L2s are useful or not, they're useful, but how to kind of extract or transfer all this value back to L1s. Is it like, building more decentralized sequencers, moving everything back to L1? Like, is that the way forward? Or we have it as it is today, right? You look at Base, right? It's so popular. People are using it. People are building applications, gaming, DeFi. It works really well. So I think based on today's infrastructure, L2s definitely should still be around, yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And thank you for saying base, because that's my perfect caveat to Arpit. Arpit didn't tell me what he's building on base. He just told me he's building on base. As from a builder's perspective, when you see all this shift in metas, like, we want to scale the L1, from a developer standpoint, like from a infrastructure lab standpoint, does that change your theory on like, hey, I want to build on the L1 versus the L2? Like, how does a builder think about those things?
Yeah, really nice question. So I think for us as Glitch Labs, what we do is we build L1s, L2s, L3s, everything. I think these terms, are just too technical to be debated. I think it's more about the application, as we've been saying. So it depends on what you exactly want to deploy on chain and where it needs to sit. I think the development of L1 is necessary, and it should happen continuously because that's the security layer, right? That's the settlement layer. But on top of it, we are seeing more and more chains like Robinhood, like Base, and what they are focusing is now on the user experience. So you cannot just compete with numbers, with throughput, because there are many faster L1s as well, which are as fast or even faster than L2s. So it's all about your specific customization needed and how you could own your ecosystem. Yeah.
That makes sense. And guys, I don't know if you realize we've been on this panel for like 15 minutes now. So we've covered the modular thesis, we covered staking. Aaron, walk us through like what was the initial restaking thesis? Yeah. Right? Like just talk to us about that, and I'll ask you follow-up questions, but like set the stage.
Yeah, sure. So for people who don't really understand what restaking is, essentially you stake your ETH, right? You stake your ETH natively on Ethereum, and then you use that stake position to restake or secure other networks that are being built, right? So it doesn't have to be a network, actually. It could be like a protocol, it could be an application, it could be a new project. These projects may be new and they don't have their initial set of validators, so they borrow security from Ethereum, right? Initially, obviously, this was a really hot topic when EigenLayer launched like a year ago or a bit more than a year ago. Basically, people were kind of aping into EigenLayer. A lot of new applications, or what they call ABSs, were being kind of built on EigenLayer. And then after EigenLayer, you also have Symbiotic, which is like another restaking protocol, which is much more flexible. So that means you don't actually need to have stake ETH. You can actually use wrap BTC or like wrap ETH or any other assets as economic value to actually secure these networks or ABSs that are being listed on Symbiotic, right? I think the meta has died down a little bit recently because I think initially people thought when they were doing restaking, they were actually getting solid yields, right? Like they were getting new tokens from these new networks or protocols. But the reality is that actually a lot of these new ABSs or applications or networks are actually not live yet. So you're taking additional risks, you're restaking your staked ETH, but then in return, you're actually getting like points, like potential airdrops of these new ABSs or new applications, right? So I think that's why it's cooled down a little bit. I think hopefully it'll pick back up again later on when all these kind of new ABSs or networks actually launch their token. So for people who are staking, they get like the native 2 to 3% yield on Ethereum. And on top, they're also getting like another 2-3% from these new networks. So definitely initial hype died down a little bit, and hopefully like in the coming year, it's gonna pick back up a little bit, yeah.
That makes sense. And I saw a really funny tweet the other day. It was like EigenLayer was the first on-chain digital asset treasury, which I thought was hilarious. Tom, to you, like as an L2 founder, what did you think of the restaking meta when it started to pop off?
From I would say, value, usability, and expansion, and easing up liquidity, I think was great. It's taking traditional finance strategies into the blockchain era. it's really taking a collateral and staking it, getting that note value, restaking it for additional yield, which is now an economic value. So the value has transferred, but it's shared across multiple protocols. So in terms of restaking, I think it's great, but there's a market demand, right? Supply and demand. So now the market is balancing. It might pick up, or this might be kind of the level set amount. But I think right now with the barrier of entry for any kind of L2s or protocols, it's very low. So the yield and the value extraction has really been thin. And we've seen that through kind of like the transaction and the history of kind of where the state of all the L2s are currently at the moment. But I think it's great to really apply that. Now it's a balancing act between kind of the market on the supply, demand, what the market's really needing. And we're seeing a shift of like, okay, where else can we drive yield? How can we get more yield? But the only key thing is transaction on Ethereum is getting lower. L2s are getting even lower. I think they have to find a new way to drive yield or value back into these restaking side, because basically your toll fees are really low. It's almost free. So where's the yield coming from? So in terms of like, hey, how are we going to increase this? I think this is a good question for the industry to really figure out. I don't have the solution, but I think it's understanding the problem and then find a way to really bring value back to that sector.
That makes a lot of sense. And okay, so we covered like what the problems with restaking were. We were at like the current landscape. Aaron, do you want to talk a little bit about how the restaking thesis is positioned right now, and what you think like the landscape is right now for restaking?
Yeah, I feel like I mentioned, hopefully it's going to pick back up again. But I think it really depends on whether kind of these new applications that are being built on Eigenlayer or Symbiotic, whether they will actually go, mainnet or actually launch. Because without them launching, people who are staking are just hoping that they'll get additional yields, right? But right now they're not getting anything at all. So I think for this kind of whole thesis to pick back up, we do need to see like a lot of these kind of newer applications or networks being built on these restaking protocols to actually go live. How long that's going to take, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, no one really knows. But yeah, let's see. Yeah.
And just to address the common meme on crypto Twitter, do you think restaking has improved economic security on all these different chains?
Yeah, for validators like ourselves, so we do take a pretty prudent approach when we onboard like an AVS, so that we can offer it to our clients for restaking. So we don't onboard any new networks or any new AVSs on both Eigenlayer and Symbiotic. We got to make sure the team is good. There's good history with the team. It's not a fraudulent project. Things like that. So in terms of us, taking additional risk, we're quite prudent on that. And then on the staker side, obviously when they restake, they're actually taking additional slashing risk, right? So you stake your ETH, there's an initial slash risk, but if you restake your ETH, there's actually additional risk that they're taking on as well, right? So I think they really need to balance the risks, earning the rewards, and in return, are they actually getting the additional yields, right? So that's to be seen, I think. Yeah.
Tom, can I add onto this? I think it does bring a lot of additional risk, because you don't know if another protocol spins up and they drive a lot of restaking and staking to the protocol, but they are not a groomed team or have great security on their protocol. It reminds me of the financial crisis in the US, how they bundled, low grade financial product into a product that's high grade. It puts everybody at risk. So a minute amount of maybe assets or teams could basically crumble a lot of the industry in this way with risk.
Yeah, and just for everyone's context, that's a very contrarian take to the whole restaking narrative. So Tom, I'm really happy that you shared that with the audience. Cool. We're on our final 3-4 minutes. I think we have to talk about the recent shifts in the Ethereum Foundation's approach. They've been hiring a lot of people. They've now set up a different arm called Etherealize that's focusing on all of the institutional partners. Funny enough, Vitalik's been tweeting a lot more. I don't know if you saw the I wash my clothes tweet the other day on Chainura. That was hilarious. My last question to all of you guys. In your respective line of work, and I know you guys work on very different aspects of the industry, what would you like to see from the Ethereum Foundation more? And Arpit, I'd love to start with you.
Yeah, definitely. Recently we've seen the Ethereum rising again, which is really good for the industry. I think being a part of the builder community, what we would need in future moving ahead is even faster innovation and easier innovation. So how you do it is by creating and investing heavily on reference architectures. So let's not reinvent the whole wheel, but have some standard architectures in place if Ethereum Foundation could do it. And apart from that, I think it's basic test benching, providing some tools on top of it. And the end goal of Ethereum Foundation should be to make sure that the stance stays neutral, so that everyone could build fairly on top of it, and to be as much stable and even more secure with time as possible. Yeah.
Tom?
I would say I think we don't know what they're dealing with, what they've talked behind the scenes. But I think as a foundation for them, for Ethereum Foundation, being proactive, being not reactive. I think the recent shift has been reactive, right? Sometimes when you're so big, you don't want to shift so fast. More nimble, more, I would say, eager team would be more progressive. It's great to see them being more progressive, but keep that tempo, but be more open. I think that's the key thing to innovation. I think once you get so big, you feel you have to play it safe. But actually, you got to keep innovating. Maybe just keep doing what they're doing. But kudos to the team for sure. I think they're doing great at the moment.
Have they increased interactions with like other L2 founders recently? Is that something that you've noticed over the past few years?
Sure, I think they're open. They're open to any kind of support contribution. But we're kind of in the midst of all this conversation, the results won't be seen for maybe another few months or a year from now. But it's great for them to have that vocal shift, not just publicly, but also working with the institution side, which is key. I think that was something that they didn't really push, but now they see the reactive kind of necessity to really work with the traditional finance side.
For sure. Aaron, close this off.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Like you mentioned, kind of working with institutions and enterprises. I feel like the Ethereum Foundation can actually be more aggressive in approaching kind of the traditional players to kind of build on Ethereum, right? Like that's kind of what we see from maybe like Solana or Avalanche Foundation. They're actually quite aggressive in going after like different partnerships, right? Like getting, banks in Asia to build stablecoins on your blockchain, or even, we were talking about like the Hong Kong stablecoin guidelines coming out recently, right? Like maybe like talking to big corporations like JD, like Alibaba to actually build on your chain, right? So I think these things, the Ethereum Foundation can do a little bit more. And maybe on the validator front, maybe actually get more people who hold Ethereum to run validators. So right now, obviously the minimum is still quite high. You need like 32 ETH to run validators. But at least, for institutions who hold enough ETH, maybe they should run their own validators. Or maybe like in the future when the minimum kind of goes down, everyone can run validators from home, right? So hopefully that's kind of the end goal, and hopefully we'll see kind of more of the foundation kind of pushing this narrative through as well. Yeah.
All right. That's everything, guys. Thanks so much for this awesome conversation. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.